same time not lose my sense of who I am, even as my definition of who I am is one that allows me to grow and expand. I mean, one of the challenges these days, I say these days, I mean the last 40 years or so, with the magnificent results of the civil rights movement, black freedom movement, women's freedom movement, workers expanding, gay and lesbian brothers and sisters gaining access to viewing themselves as full-fledged human beings and so forth, has been that it's so easy these days to become so obsessed with success that we lose sight of what greatness is. And this is one of the great contributions of black people. You see, that black people have always, at our best, from Douglass to Martin King, from Harriet Tubman to Ida B. Wells, on to Fannie Lou Hamer, and from Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington to Sarah Vaughan and Curtis Mayfield, and Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles. Success as a means to greatness. Financial prosperity, crucial, indispensable, necessary, but not sufficient for the definition of what it means to be human. Never confusing financial prosperity with moral magnanimity, or individual security with personal integrity. And one of the challenges for me, especially in speaking to highly talented, sharp, brilliant, skilled, privileged brothers and sisters of all colors like yourselves, is that the best of black history has always said that the end is not to produce a whole wave of peacocks who walk around with their foliage showing everybody their material toys and highlighting their achievements and accomplishments as if that's the end all and be all. The Negro National Anthem says what? Do not become so drunk with the wine of the world or intoxicated with the felicities of bourgeois existence that you think that somehow that's the end as opposed to the means. I can hear grandmama in the back of the church saying peacock strut because they can't fly. Meaning what? Meaning that the end is what kind of human being you want to be, what kind of family you produce, what kind of neighborhood you shape, what kind of world, what kind of nation do you contribute to. And yes, financial prosperity is a fundamental, indispensable element, no doubt, a necessary but not a sufficient condition. Not a sufficient condition, you see. And the danger is that it not simply becomes idolatrous in the religious sense, but we end up producing persons who become well adjusted to injustice, become so comfortable in your slot that the memories and integrity and conscience begins to so evaporate that you lose a sense of that first terrifying question I started with. What does it really mean to be human? I believe in many ways we're probably most human when we stand before the coffin of our mothers. You then have to bring together the three dimensions of time, the past, the present, and the future. And you see the past in the corpse. You represent the quick, the present. And then the issue is, what kind of legacy are you going to leave? What kind of tradition are you going to bequeath to those who come after? Because you will soon be in that corpse too, no matter how many material toys you have. And that's the fundamental question each of us have to answer within the distinct precincts of our own souls. The black folk have been a soulful people. And by soulful, I don't just mean being highly syncopated in rhythmic and musical presentation. You see, soul is the sharing of soothing sweetness against the backdrop of catastrophic circumstances. Just like the blues autobiographical chronicle, a personal catastrophe expressed lyrically. Black folk have always begun with the catastrophic. And the question is, how do you cope? How do you respond? One of the greatest moments in the history of American civilization is the moment of Emmett Till's mother. She had to step to the lectern and tell the world about what she thought, the death of her precious baby Emmett. You all know the story, Brother Emmett Till. Gut bucket, Jim Crow, Mississippi, summer of 1955. He was murdered. Brought his body back south side of Chicago. You all know the story. Put the picture in Jet, Ebony, John Johnson, and others made it available to all the world. All the authorities, federal, local, state said, make sure you keep that coffin closed. She said, no, this is the night side of American democracy. The world must see. His head was 5 times the size of his ordinary head. That was her only baby. His father had fought in the U.S. Army, held the flag. And she steps to the lectern, looks over with tears in her eyes. And here she brings together the Socratic and the prophetic. Because Socrates never cries, he just argues. Amos cries. Jesus weeps. Muhammad has tears. That's the legacy of Jerusalem. Why Jerusalem goes further than Athens in that sense. I'm speaking as a Christian, so I've got my biases. But I think I'm right. I'm not a relativist about these things. Somebody's right and wrong about this thing. Jesus weeping is for what? Because he loves Lazarus, so he loves Jerusalem, so he weeps twice. Socrates never weeps because he loves wisdom in the abstract. He doesn't love concrete persons. There's a difference. Emmett Till's mother is weeping because she loves a concrete individual, namely the precious baby that she gave birth to, Emmett. And she steps to the lectern and says, what? I don't have a minute to hate. I will pursue justice for the rest of my life. That's Mom's Till Magley. She spoke on behalf of the best of the black people. What does it mean to have to deal with being unsafe, unprotected, subject to random violence, and hated for who you are? Doing social death of slavery, civic death of Jim and Jane Crow, wrestling with spiritual death and psychic death, and still say to the world, I don't have a minute to hate. She didn't have to read George Bernard Shaw to know hatred is a coward's revenge against those who intimidate you. She didn't want to be cowardly. She didn't want to get in the gutter with the folk who already had put her baby in the gutter. She wanted to take a higher ground, a spiritual, moral ground. She wanted to create a people who could stand up and have a self-confidence